Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to another blast from the past as I review ECW Hardcore Heaven. This was ECW's second ever pay per view, which took place back on August 17th, 1997, from the War Memorial in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The opens up with Joey Styles going through announcing some of the matches for the show. Outcome: he's interrupted by Ravishing Rick Rude, but Styles takes the microphone back from Rude and says, talks about what happened a month earlier at Heatwave when Rude uh, turned on Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman in a steel cage match, and that Rude had recently appeared on Monday Night Raw as Shawn Michaels' insurance policy. Styles leaves the ring. Rude takes the microphone. He says, "Tell Styles you've mistaken me for someone who gives a crap about what you think." And then Rude did his "what I'd like to have right now" shtick. And then somebody in the crowd gave Rude an unwanted shower. And Rude introduces no gimmicks needed, Chris Candido, who comes out. But then all of a sudden, ECW's founder and commissioner, Todd Gordon, comes out with some referees. Todd says to Rude, "You threw away a lucrative 2-year contract as a commentator just to become a gun for hire. What you do outside of ECW is your business. What you do in ECW is my business. You are not a licensed manager. You have until the count of 10 to leave the ring or Candido will forfeit the match." Rude then says to Todd, 2 months ago when I was being Mr. Nice Guy, it's whatever you want. The sky's the limit. Anything goes. Now I turn around and be myself. You want to jerk my chain. And then Todd starts the 10 count. Rude leaves the ring before heading towards the curtain. He gives Todd a sight for the bird watchers and says, "Fuck you, Gordon." And then the usual ECW theme plays for the pay-per-view audience sitting at home. And we have our first matchup as Chris Candido challenges the Human Suplex Machine Taz for the World Television Championship. Well, this match came about during the chaos of the Heatwave 97 steel cage match, where Taz actually hit the ring, and he ended up putting the Taz mission on Jerry the King Lawler, but the Triple Threat eventually come out, and Candido, he put the Taz mission on Taz, and if that wasn't enough, Candido wrestled a match against Spike Dudley, came out wearing Taz's singlet, and was even came out to Taz's music, and that's what led up to this, I guess, not really led up to it, to the TV title match. Initially, Taz still has his stance in the corner, and Candido's like, "Go to come out in the corner and get this match started." After the bell already rang, Candido slaps Taz in the face, spits in his face, and then Taz finally comes out of the corner, and Candido gets an early advantage. Candido tries a leapfrog. Taz kicks Candido in the balls, and Taz takes down with a pump handle Tazplex. Candido powders to the floor, comes back in the ring, and he's telling the crowd to shut up. And then Taz used some judo moves, which, if you think Mike Tenay was bad with pronouncing the luchadors moves in WCW, I mean, Joey Styles took the cake when it came to these judo moves. One was called the Katahura, and the other was called the hip line Sayanagi. Yeah, say that 3 times fast. Some mat wrestling on both men's part led up to Taz putting on the Juji Kitami on Candido until Candido puts his foot on the rope. Taz stomps Candido while he's still hanging on the rope. He yells, "Get up, you pussy!" Eventually, Candido took over with a power bomb. Taz hit a Northern Lights suplex. Candido hit an enziguri, followed by a stalling suplex, a top rope Hurricane Rana, and a diving headbutt. Taz eventually retaliated with a clothesline, put a bow and arrow submission hold on Candido. Candido hit a second powerbomb. Taz kicked out. Candido tried for the blonde bombshell, which was this top rope powerbomb off the top rope, and Taz hit a belly-to-belly Tazplex. Back on the mat, Taz hit a German Tazplex, then hit the T-bone Tazplex. Eventually, Candido reverses a whip to the corner. Taz comes out. Candido hits a power slam. Candido puts Taz up on the turnbuckle, sitting on the turnbuckle. Candido turns around, puts up the triple threat hand gesture, does the throat slit, but as does Taz, and then Taz puts Candido in the Taz mission, comes down for the rope, still with the Taz mission on. Candido taps out, enabling Taz to retain the World Television title. These two worked very nicely together, so I don't know if this was... They may have wrestled each other before this pay-per-view even took place and such. They would go at it again about 2 years later for the Heavyweight Championship on a pay-per-view, where they actually opened up the show again, but Taz had murdered Candido in in a minute and change. Next, they show the Insane Clown Posse, rap duo Shaggy 2 Dope and Violent J. Rob Van Dam and Bill Alfonso come to the ring, and ICP are thrilled to see him, and ICP says to the crowd, give it up for Rob Van Dam, but Van Dam attacks one with a spin kick. Eventually Sabu comes out, and they both do a number on these poor guys. Ugh. And then they come back to the live live, and we have our next matchup where we saw Spike Dudley taking on the Beast from the East, Bam Bam Bigelow. Now, about a week prior to this pay-per-view, at the ECW Arena, they had a show titled Born to Be Wired, had the infamous Terry Funk versus Sabu barbed wire match. Well, also on that show, Spike Dudley managed to score an upset victory over Bam Bam Bigelow, so here's a rematch from that show. As soon as the bell rang, Spike attacked Bigelow right away, and Bam Bam stopped Spike's attack with a headbutt. Then he Beal threw Spike out of the corner, and then hit an avalanche in the corner. Spike tries to go for a crucifix, but Bigelow fell forward. So it went forward instead of backwards. Spike eventually hit a swinging bulldog off the turnbuckles. Spike climbed to the top rope, tries for a Hurricanrana. Bigelow catches him and powerbombs him. Then he presses Spike over his head and throws him, I don't know if he hits over the ring post, and he lands on the floor. Then Bigelow presses Spike over his head, this time throws him into the crowd. And I forgot how, but Spike was bleeding. Back in the ring, Bigelow scoops Spike up he's got him over his shoulder. Looked like going for a powerbomb with an over-shoulder pile driver. Then hits a moonsault from the top rope, pins Spike Dudley to pick up the match and avenge the loss from a week earlier at Born to Be Wired. And then they show more footage of the Insane Clown Posse getting beat up by Sabu and Van Dam before the pay-per-view went on the air. And then they see the Sandman came to the crowd, and I'm not sure who Sandman was going to wrestle on the show, but they said he was injured. But Sandman comes out, he's swinging his cane, Singapore cane, but I forgot somebody hits him in the chair, and Sabu and Van Dam leave him laying, and Sandman stretch it out and put it into an ambulance. Back to the live to the show, we have the next match would be contested under Monday Night Wrestling, as Al Snow, still wearing his new and improved rocker singlet from his Leaf Cassidy days in the WWF, took on Mr. Monday Night Rob Van Dam with Bill Alfonso in his corner. They had some good mat work to start out. Snow hit the wheelbarrow suplex, or as he called it, the Snowplex. They went out to the floor. Van Dam did a moonsault off the guardrail on the snow. Rob hits Air Van Dam, which was a dive where he would hurdle the ropes. Eventually, Snow hit the Northern Lights Bomb, which was a move Kensuke Sasaki and Akira Hokuto would do, and which later was named the Snow Plow. Van Dam hit a top rope jumping side kick. Hits a frog splash before it was the 5-star frog splash. Al Snow hit this like powerbomb type move, but instead of dropping Van Dam on his back, he threw him behind him, where Van Dam landed on his face and such. I forgot Snow hit a superplex as well. They go back out to the floor. Snow used a chair. Eventually, Van Dam hits the Van Daminator and pins Al Snow to pick up the victory. Okay, then we show footage of Lance Wright in a helicopter overseeing the ambulance that the Sandman was put in. And it turned out the Sandman commandeered the ambulance, so I don't know if he attacked the paramedics in there, or so they say, and was trying to find his way back to the building. Then we see a promo from Jerry the King Lawler on his match with Tommy Dreamer yet to come in the show, and Lawler was saying that the WWF wrestlers were behind him and saying Undertaker wanted to see Dreamer rest in peace, and Lawler said the Undertaker told him to give him a tombstone pile driver. Bret Hart told him put him in the sharpshooter. Steve Austin said open up the biggest can of whoop ass Fort Lauderdale's ever seen. Then we go back to the ring and we see the Dudley boys, Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley, accompanied by Joel Gertner, Sign Guy Dudley, and Big Dick Dudley. Now, my understanding, the Dudley boys had lost the tag team championship to the Gangsters a month earlier at Heatwave 97, but Mustafa Saeed got hurt in the matchup, and the thing was, it was announced that if the Gangsters did not show up to the pay-per-view, they would forfeit the belts back to the Dudley boys. And if that happened, the Dudley boys would have to defend the belts against PG-13, JC Ice, a.k.a. Jamie Dundee, and Wolfie D. But the Dudleys were in the ring, and aside from Gertner, Sign Guy, and Big Dick, they were accompanied to the ring by adult film star Jenna Jameson. And Gertner announced to the crowd that the Dudleys were the champions again. And at one point, Gertner even insulted referee John Finnegan, telling the crowd, "Your referee is bald." And then out comes PG-13, JC Ice and Wolfie D. Ice, or JC, takes the microphone and he insults the Dudley boys, calls Bubba Ray fat boy. He says tells Gertner, "You look at Elvis Presley right before he died," and he kind of like tried to put the moves on Jenna Jameson, verbally, that is. Eventually, the match gets underway. PG-13, of course, were USWA Tag Team Champions, and they were previously seen in the WWF as the rappers of the Nation of Domination. But the match gets underway. In the early going, JC Ice gets out of the ring, kisses Jenna Jameson. Wolfie D eventually hits a Hurricanrana on Bubba Ray. Wolfie D's taking punishment, and they do this heel tactic where they work over Wolfie's arm. The referee's arguing with JC. Bubba takes Wolfie's arm and puts it over Devon, and Devon's on the apron cranking on Wolfie's arm. He did it 2 occasions, but eventually Wolfie broke away from Bubba and dragged Bubba's arm to Devon, and they were arguing out on the floor for a short time. As that happened, Sign Guy comes up to the apron, distracted the referee. Big Dick hits the ring, hits a double chokeslam on PG-13. One point, JC was coming off the rope. Jenna trips him, and then those fucking perverts in the crowd, they were chanting "bounce," and she was jumping up and down, as was Gertner for some weird reason. Come on, bunch of perverts. They're chanting "bounce" like they would have had a fucking chance with her. Especially she was an adult film star? Come on. Alright, back to the match here. Damn, ooh, my eye. Devon Dudley hits a second rope leg drop on Wolfie. Then he hits him with a side slam, or as I remember it as the Dino Bravo finisher. Yeah. Bubba Ray hit a tilt-a-whirl slam or tilt-a-whirl power slam. Eventually, JC Ice gets tagged in. No, I'm sorry. JC didn't tag out. He kicked Bubba Ray in the groin. Gave Devon a DDT. Wolfie gets tagged in. He drop kicked both Dudleys with each foot. Powerbombs Devon, but that didn't do it. I think they both did dives to the floor onto the Dudleys. I think they caught JC, but Wolfie dived onto everybody. But then back in the ring, Wolfie got hit with the Dudley Death Drop, and he was pinned, enabling the Dudley Boys to retain the Tag Team Championship. Okay. Then we go back to Lance riding a helicopter. There was an update on the Sandman who had commandeered the ambulance. Apparently, Sandman managed to find his way back to the building, and the police officers are waiting for him outside. And Sandman is using a Singapore cane on them, and I guess the cops were trying to arrest him and stuff. But back in the building, the lights go out, the lights come back on. Jerry the King Lawler's in the ring, cutting a promo, and even plugged the next WWF pay-per-view coming up, which was Ground Zero. And pretty much said the same thing in the backstage promo earlier in the pay-per-view. And even called Tommy Dreamer a ballless wonder. So we have Lawler against Tommy Dreamer, coming ring by Beulah McGillicuddy. In the early going, Dreamer comes in the ring and Lawler attacks. Dreamer had some kind of metal object that Beulah carried to the ring. And Lawler tried for a punch, but he hits the object, hurting his fist. And then Dreamer's unloading with right hands. He's near the rope, and Dreamer, with that metal object, let's just say he did his best Andre Agassi impression as he forehanded Lawler with that object, knocking Lawler over the top rope out to the floor. They eventually go into the crowd. Dreamer gets a hold of a hamburger from somebody and rubs that in Lawler's face. Dreamer took a fan's belt and he's whipping Lawler with it, choking him with it. While the crowd yelling ECW the whole time. Dreamer was going to go to the top rope, but Jerry Lawler shook the ropes, causing Dreamer to get crotched. Then Lawler rocket launches Dreamer off the rope onto a chair in the middle of the ring. Damn. Then Lawler, he chokes Dreamer with that same fan's belt. Then he hit a pile driver. Lawler rips the front of Dreamer's ECW shirt and ECW shirt and wipes his armpits and his behind with it. Actually, it wasn't his bare behind. Dreamer comes back with punches. And dang, what did Dreamer... I forgot what Dreamer ended up doing, but he ended up stuffing that ECW shirt in Lawler's mouth. Lawler, I think Dreamer tried for a DDT, but Lawler pushed Dreamer and they squashed referee Jim Molyneux in the corner. Lawler gives Molyneux a DDT. Eventually, Dreamer tries to crotch Lawler on the ring post, but the lights in the building go out. Lights come back on. Ravishing Rick Rude hits Dreamer with a trash can. And I think Lawler tries to get a pin, but Dreamer kicks out. Dreamer tries to hit a pile driver, but the lights go out again. Lights come back on, and Jake the Snake Roberts attacks clotheslines Dreamer, preventing him from pile driving Lawler. Gives Dreamer a DDT. Then Roberts offers to shake hands with Lawler, but then hits Lawler with a clothesline and leaves the ring. Lawler at that point actually landed on top of Dreamer, but Dreamer kicked out. Then Dreamer tries to give Lawler a DDT. Lights go out again. Lights come back on. Sunny is in the ring. I don't know if it's sprays something in Dreamer's face, but Beulah McGillicuddy comes in the ring, takes Sunny down. They have a cat fight. That's another one for all the perverts out there. But then Lawler grabs Beulah. He was going to pile drive her. Dreamer's got a chair. He's approaching Lawler, but Lawler uses Beulah as a shield, a la what Randy Savage did with Elizabeth years earlier. Beulah back kicks Lawler in the groin. Dreamer uses a testicular claw. Yells ECW, gives Lawler a DDT, pins him to win the match. Oh boy. Yeah, that sounded like a lot so far, folks. Okay. Then it was time for the main event, as we saw the franchise, Shane Douglas and Terry Funk, face Sabu for the ECW Championship. Now, initially, this was going to be Funk and Douglas one-on-one, but a week earlier at Born to Be Wired, Sabu defeated Funk in a barbed wire match to win the title. So that's how Sabu wound up getting into the match. Now, early in the match, they double-teamed Funk. Funk took Air Sabu twice. Douglas hit Sabu with a chair. Sabu German suplexed Douglas. Funk hit a neckbreaker on Sabu with assistance from Douglas onto two chairs. At one point, Funk tries for a pinfall. Sabu kicks out, and Funk hits referee John Finnegan. He says, "God damn it!" And Finnegan says, "Terry was too." Sabu with a chair shot. Douglas tried to put like a spinning toe hold on Terry Funk, and he called Funk a cocksucker. Yells triple threat, but then Sabu dropkicks Douglas in the face. Funk hit a pile driver on Sabu. Douglas brought a piece of guardrail into the ring. Sabu puts Terry Funk on a table, which was brought in the ring. Bill Alfonso, he's attacking Funk, who's on the table. Out comes ECW's Commissioner Todd Gordon. He goes after Alfonso. At that point, Shane Douglas attacks Todd Gordon, gives him a headbutt, puts Gordon on the table. Sabu's trying to climb to the top rope. In the meantime, I believe with a chair, and Funk puts Alfonso on the table, and Sabu does a leg drop off the top rope, putting both Alfonso and Gordon through the table. I forgot. Sabu brought a ladder into the match. And Sabu hit a. Wait, did he? Wait a second. Oh, Sabu hit Finnegan, the referee. Sandman eventually pushes Sabu off the top rope, and he's using the ladder on him. I think Douglas tried to pin Sabu, but he kicked out with the ladder on top of him as well. Douglas and Funk both pin Sabu. In the meantime, the cops have come out, and they try to pull Sandman away from the ring. Sabu, after being eliminated from the match, he does a dive off the top rope onto Sandman and the cops, and some of the roster come out to break up Sandman and Sabu. Out on the floor, Funk uses a trash can on Douglas. Funk kicked out of I think, well, early in the match, I forgot to mention, Douglas gave both Funk and Sabu belly-to-belly suplexes. But Funk took his second belly-to-belly suplex and he kicked out. Douglas did the stuffed pile driver that Mick Foley was known for, where he grabs the tights and picks them up by the tights to a pile driver. Francine comes in the ring and she's slapping Funk around until Funk's older brother, Dory Funk Jr., comes out. And he's hitting Douglas with those uppercuts of his, and Dory then chases Francine to the back. Funk and Douglas continue to match. They're on the apron. Douglas tries to a belly-to-belly suplex, but Funk prevents that from happening, and I don't know if something went wrong, but they both went off the apron, crashing through the table. Funk kicked out of a third and fourth belly-to-belly suplex. Funk countered a belly-to-belly suplex with a small package, but Douglas kicked out of that. Douglas hits a fifth belly-to-belly suplex, finally pins Funk to win the match and become the new ECW World Heavyweight Champion. After it's over, Francine comes back out. She and Douglas attack Terry Funk. Terry's brother Dory Jr. didn't come back out. But then at that point, in comes Joel Gertner and Gertner, Bubba Ray Devon, and Big Dick Dudley. They come in the ring, and Gertner tells Douglas, I was once your personal ring announcer before I grew attached to the Dudleys. And Gertner tells Douglas, why don't you dump the triple threat, and you and the Dudley Boys could be the Triple Crown. Which did not sit well with Bam Bam Bigelow and Chris Candido, who came out. They went after Bubba and Devon. Douglas, I think, started going out with Big Dick, and then like the most of the guys that tried to break up the Sandman Sabu brawl earlier, they come in the ring. Among them were Mikey Whipwreck, Chris Chetty, the FBI, Hack Myers, Thomas Inchworm Rodman. I forgot who else. Well, most of those guys were getting chokeslammed by Big Dick Dudley. Wild Bill Wiles, I think he was the last one to get chokeslammed. But then out came Balls Mahoney and Axel Rotten. They're using their chairs, but they get taken down by the three Dudley boys. And they're also beating up on Funk. But then all of a sudden, Natural Born Killers starts playing, and out comes New Jack and John Cronus, and eventually Perry Saturn also comes out, and they're basically cleaning house on the Dudleys. Actually, what happened was Big Dick gave New Jack and Cronus a double chokeslam, but Perry Saturn, he hits the ring, hits Big Dick with a crutch. Saturn did an elbow off the top rope onto, was it Bubba? And then Saturn, I guess he really was hurt. His knee was not 100% by that point, because he was only like 2 months removed from having surgery. And I guess Funk was trying to help Saturn out of the ring. Eventually, wow. New Jack used his chain, hit Devon in the groin with it. Eventually, Joel Gertner ends up in the ring, and he's like throwing a fit. New Jack hits him with a chair. Then Cronus climbed the top rope, gave Gertner a 450 splash. And basically, to send the fans home happy, and also to end the pay-per-view is after the Faces did a number on Gertner and the Dudleys, they all came into the crowd, and just felt bad for Terry Funk. He must have been so tired after all that was over. Well, this was, ECW's second ever pay-per-view, and not as good as Barely Legal a few months earlier, but I forgot to mention a few things here, because the original card for Hardcore Heaven initially was going to be the Taz Sabu rematch from Barely Legal. I understand Raven was probably going to wrestle Stevie Richards, but both men had left for ECW. Sandman, I think, was going to eventually wrestle Sabu, but that got scratched. Okay, well, any event, obviously changes were made, and the Dreamer Lawler was quite a build-up to their matchup. So, folks, let me know what you think of this review as I discuss the ECW Hardcore Heaven 1997. I should have some more reviews coming up pretty soon, So stay tuned, everyone.